I saw what he said about Muslims, about the Ku Klux Klan.
Trump refuses to denounce the KKK.
He refuses to denounce the KKK.
Mr. Trump, how do you feel about the recent endorsement from David Duke?
I didn't even know he endorsed me. David Duke endorsed me? Okay. All right. I disavow, okay?
I want to ask you about the Anti-Defamation League, which this week called on you to publicly condemn unequivocally the racism of former KKK Grand Wizard David Duke.
Well, just so you understand, I don't know anything about David Duke, okay? I don't know anything about what you're even talking about with white supremacy or white supremacists. So I don't know. I mean, I don't know, did he endorse me or what's going on?
Because we had heard that there was no endorsement. So, of course, Mr. Trump says, let me know who you're talking about.
I've rejected David Duke. I've rejected the KKK, the Ku Klux Klan. From the time I'm 5 years old, I rejected them.
What do you see as the biggest problem with the Reform Party right now?
Well, you've got David Duke just joined, a bigot, a racist, a problem. I mean, this is not exactly the people you want in your party.
I am David Duke, and this is a quick, unscripted response to the CNN interview today with Donald Trump. I can begin by the inaccurate reporting of the media that I have endorsed Donald Trump. Specifically, I have said clearly, and every time I've talked about his candidacy, that I am not endorsing Donald Trump.
Even if you don't know about their endorsement, there are these groups and individuals endorsing you.
I mean, I don't know what group you're talking about.
Number one, you disavowed David Duke 2 days prior.
If he said on Friday, I disavow, why ask him again on Saturday?
Why not disavow David Duke, disavow the KKK? What's going on?
I'm saying to myself, how many times do I have to continue to disavow people? And the question was asked about David Duke and various groups. And I don't know who the groups are. I disavowed David Duke, and I disavowed him the day before at a major news conference, which is surprising because CNN was at the major news conference, and they heard me very easily disavow David Duke. I disavowed David Duke all weekend long on Facebook, on Twitter, and obviously it's never enough.
How would you characterize in more words than one David Duke?
David Duke is a bad person who I disavowed on numerous occasions over the years.
I will not stop until we fight a man that chooses not to disavow the KKK. That is not a part of our party. That's not who we want as president. We will not allow that in our country.
I totally disavow the Ku Klux Klan. I totally disavow David Duke. I've been doing it now for 2 weeks. You're probably about the 18th person that's asked me the question. It was very clear.
But the facts are, even David Duke himself come out and said, I did not endorse Donald Trump. When Mr. Trump first heard about it, he disavowed it unequivocally and immediately.
When I put out that I reject KKK and David Duke, nobody picks it up. You know why they don't? Because they don't want to pick it up. They pick it up. You pick it up. Everyone else picks it up. You saw simultaneously, practically at the same time. They don't want to pick it up. Now, I have been asked this question so many times. I have rejected it so many times. I don't need his endorsement. I certainly wouldn't want his endorsement.
You said I disavow.
I said to myself, how many times do I have to reject or disavow? I told CNN when Chris Christie endorsed me, a very good endorsement, and one of the questions, that question was asked, and I rejected it there. No, I don't want them, and I don't want him to say it. I can't help if he says it, but I don't want it, and if he says it, John, if he says it, he says it, okay? Do I want it? No.
And you want the supporters?
No, I don't want anything.
What do you think of white supremacists, by the way?
I don't like any group of hate. Hate groups are not for me. But I've said this before. The press hates me to say it. They just don't want to pick it up.
There's been a lot of talk about one of our presidential candidates and his seeming ambivalence about David Duke and the KKK. So let me make it perfectly clear. Senate Republicans condemn David Duke, the KKK.
You've seen that tweet from Mitt Romney. Says your coddling of repugnant bigotry is not in the character of America. Your response?
Yeah, David Duke and all were disavowed. I disavowed him on Friday. I disavowed him right after that because I thought if there was any question, and you take a look at Twitter, almost immediately after on Twitter and Facebook, they were disavowed again. I disavowed him every time I speak to somebody virtually, and They just keep it going. They keep it going. And they said, we never looked at your Twitter account. We never looked at Facebook. I said, take a look at Facebook. It was totally disavowed.
So are you prepared right now to make a clear and unequivocal statement renouncing the support of all white supremacists?
Of course I am. Of course I am. I mean, there's nobody that's done so much for equality as I have.
David Duke and people like that, they come out from under the rocks all the time around this time this year. It got nothing to do with Donald Trump. We're all Americans. I think we need to stop with all the racist stuff and the race baiting. Like me and my friend right here, we just met today, we was talking. We got to stop with the racist stuff and this, that. We all Americans, man. And nobody paying David Duke no mind.
I happen to know, and everyone in America happens to know, that Donald Trump is not a racist. That's a tag that his opponents and the media tries to label him with, but he's not a racist. I mean, he did disavow David Duke. Hugh said he'll have to disavow him until eternity, which he probably will.
There's been a lot of emotion on the campaign trail, and in some cases, unfortunately, there's been some violence.
Trump has got to get on the TV and tell his supporters that violence in the political process in America is not acceptable. End of discussion.
Some of your supporters in Chicago were acting violently as well, and I have to say, the guy who rushed the stage yesterday at Donald Trump voted for you. Now, I know you're not encouraging the violence, but
Jake,
you need to tell your supporters.
Millions of people voted for me. If I have to take responsibility for everybody who voted for me, it will be a very difficult life.
Crazed, violent Bernie Sanders supporters, Black Lives Matter extremists and other leftist agitators, unhinged mobs assaulted people, attacked police, tore up signs, blocked ambulances, fired guns in the air.
If I like Donald Trump and I want to vote for him, I'm going to do it. So what? What are you going to do? Shoot me, beat me up?
No,
I don't think so.
No, it's not.
It's not the establishment necessarily that's opposing Donald Trump. You have a bunch of lobbyists on K Street right now hiding under their desks, figuring out how they can deal with Trump or perhaps co-opt him.
Mr. Trump is willing to do what needs to be done to break the stranglehold of special interest groups and the political class.
The nice thing is they can't come to me and say, well, we gave you money, Ford or General Motors or somebody. We gave you a lot of money. We need this, we need that. I'm going to do what's right for you folks, okay? I'm going to be fair to everybody, but I'm going to do what's right. And that's why we have the big deficits we have. That's why we make the bad trade deals, because all of these politicians are controlled by lobbyists and donors, etc.
And that's one of the things that I admire about Mr. Trump, because he told them all, I don't want your money. And when a politician does not want money from the rich, he's freer than the others to really do good for the masses of the people.
I saw what he said about Muslims.
We cannot vet the refugees from Syria. And when I talk to people involved in the vetting, they have no confidence at all in the people that are being allowed in. There's no way, people talk about thorough vetting. There is no vetting as a practical matter.
The head of the FBI and the head of the Department of Homeland Security come out yesterday saying they are concerned because there are not records to vet against.
We can and should do more to best enforce the security of our borders.
The challenge we're all talking about is that we can only query against that which we have collected. And so if someone has never made a ripple in the pond in Syria in a way that would get their identity or their interests reflected in our database, we can query our database until the cows come home, but we're not going to, there'll be nothing show up.
Until we can come up with some system, and I don't know how we will, I would say we should try to find a sanctuary for them in the Middle East. But until then, we cannot put Americans at risk.
Now, well, the Muslim thing, not allowing any Muslims into the United States.
And we're talking about on a short-term basis, temporary. You're going to have exceptions. You're going to have people coming in.
But when you know that the ISIS is going to attempt to infiltrate terrorists with those refugees, that puts the U.S. directly at risk.
And it's not about religion. This is about safety. This has nothing to do with religion. It's about safety. You look at what's going on. Look at Paris and look at look what happened in Los Angeles. People are in fear. They're waiting for the next attack. I'm about security. I'm about safety. And if we continue to be politically correct and we don't want to talk about it, It's something that has to be talked about. I want to have our country be safe again. And you can see, just look at Germany. Look what happened in Germany with the tremendous crime that took place like overnight, the tremendous problems they had on New Year's Eve. And, you know, I just want to see something different for our country. We're starting a dialogue. And because of what I've done all over the world, they're starting to think. I mean, you take a look at Brussels and you look at some of these countries, what's going on is incredible. And at a minimum, we're getting a dialogue started so we can come up with a solution.
Imam, let me start with you. You agree with Donald Trump.
Any type of safety, security measure to basically hold on, make us understand what is really going on, I would really consider it as a very wise move.
And I think that today we are in the midst of the darkest hour in American history. And so if we don't make the right move with the right people at the right time, the America that we know, we're not going to see it become great again.